My name is Lloyd Thomas. I grew up at Black Bear Island and then Matheson Island. We moved to Matheson Island so our family could go to school. And my father was a lighthouse keeper at Black Bear Island and a fisherman. And I started working on the boats when I was about 15 years old. I started working on the Luberg, worked there for 2 summers, and then worked on the Canard, carrying barges of cement to Grand Rapids. So I had only 4 summers of working on the boats. I was a wheelsman. Of course, you ran in shifts. My shift was 6 to 12, 6 a.m. till noon and 6 p.m. till midnight. And when you stopped to pick up fish, you became a loader. We'd work down in the hold. Say on the Luberg, we worked stacking fish boxes, and they would came in 2 sizes. What they call a 50-pound box would hold 50 pounds of fish, and maybe 20, 30 pounds of ice in there. They had a mechanical lift that would bring the fish into the hold, and you'd pick it off there, and you'd go and you'd stack it, and you'd stack it right up to the roof. That was the job, and then when you were finished that, if it was your shift, you would wash yourself off and get up there and steer the boat until your shift was over. From leaving Selkirk, usually you'd leave in the evening, so I would usually leave Selkirk. I would be the wheelsman to take the ship down the Red River and onto Lake Winnipeg, and somewhere off of Gimli it would be midnight. And then the other wheelsman, when I was on the Luberg, it was a fellow by the name of Frank Marais. And Frank would take over at midnight, and he'd be on till 6 a.m. when it was my turn again. So we got $150 a month. That was $5 a day, and but we got fed. The food was tremendous. Frank Marais, the fellow I mentioned, his mother, Ruby, was the cook on the Luberg. She baked bread, and the Luberg smelled so good when Ruby was baking. But she made other things. We had roast beef, we had ribs with glazed ribs. We ate like kings. The food was fantastic. Everything that you would have, mashed potatoes, and we even had fish, believe it or not, on the Luberg when she was the cook there. And so, yeah, the guys were all happy with the meals. They were delicious. Ruby was a fantastic cook, one of the best cooks I've ever encountered. Actually, from Matheson Island, a lot of the ladies, they got jobs at the camps, the fishing stations, cooking, or on the boats. That was one of the ways that they could make money. And they made lots of money too, like $150 a month. They're often very sudden. You'd be going along. Like one time we passed Barons River, there was no storm. And by the time we got 20 miles out from Barons River, there was waves that were probably 10 feet high and very, very strong wind. And we went to George's Island and Bradbury, the ship that's over here. And let's see, the Bradbury, the Sparrow, a very small boat, the Luberg, I think it was the Suzanne and the Keystone. There were 5 boats all lined up in the lee there because nobody could travel. But it wasn't scary. I mean, that was just, you're going and say, oh, we can't go through this. So you just pull in the lee of the island. Then, of course, a great big poker game broke out, and they played poker all day and all night. I was not around when the Suzanne sunk, but I knew several of the people that were on board. So that was 1965 when that happened. The Suzanne was going north, and the story I heard that it had a yawl. It's a small fishing boat loaded with the stern of the yawl sitting outside the the big door. I was told that when the ship tried to turn, that you all picked up water and held the boat for a minute, and then of course the next wave hit it. But who knows? They were the only witness. Didn't say anything about that. There was one person survived. The captain almost made it to shore. He was along with Clifford on the. They had a piece of the ship that they climbed onto in water, and it was in September, so the water was already cold, and they washed ashore on Black Island, but the captain had died by then.
My name is Bill Shedd. I live in Selkirk, and I have lived here most of my life, with the exception of 22 years when I served in the Royal Canadian Navy. My experience on the lakes is limited to 2 summers serving in the SS Kenora, which is right next door. I was the what they call the canteen boy on the Kenora. And every Monday, my responsibility was to help the passengers get aboard the ship, stow their luggage, stock the canteen, and actually put the ice cream that we carried into galvanized tubs with rock salt and ice to keep it frozen. When the ship was fully stored, because we were also a freighter, the last thing that happened was they would load on coal, because the ship burned coal at that time. And Monday evening, just about supper time, we'd sail, and we'd be back in port again Saturday morning. But in that time, we would have transited right to the top of the lake, Warren's Landing, stopping at places like Bairns River, Grand Rapids, at Gull Harbor. And each time we came into port, my responsibilities as a canteen boy was to sell confectionery and ice cream to the local population. There was a half door here. We'd have a cooler for drinks, candy bars. I'd have a stock of bananas hanging, apples, cigarettes. This was particularly attractive for the people in the remote communities who don't have access to such things as candy bars, bananas, apples, oranges, and ice cream, particularly ice cream. On one trip, the ice cream actually melted. And there was a failure of the mechanisms. So and I think I pulled into Bairns River with all this melted ice cream. And I was responsible to the purser for the canteen. And when we had all this melted ice cream, and he says, well, what should we do? And I said, well, one of the things we could do is put the melted ice cream into the cornets and put a straw in it. We could sell it at half price. And he said, good idea. We sold out. I think I earned about $25 a month, because everything else was found. All my accommodation and food while I was away 6 days of the week. At the end of the trip, the purser gave me a $100 bonus, I think because I sold all the ice cream. But until 1950, there was no highways north of Gimli, I think. And you couldn't get into places like Bairns River or Norway House unless you went by sea. All of the goods that we transported were essential. Food items, canned milk and beer, all of that went up north. The MS Lord Selkirk is no more. I think it took its last trip in 1982, the centennial year. And my brother Harry worked on that, building that ship. But all of that was going. And here we are today, and it's virtually all gone. The only thing that you could say that we have navigating are the pleasure boats. Ships like this are no longer around. They're up here as museums, and people don't realize how we made a living, how we fed people from the lakes here. That fishing industry was just absolutely incredible. And the fish markets that we had were international. And now, I don't know. I remember my experience on the lake with great fondness, and I'm very sorry that people don't get a chance to do that anymore.